What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Joe Pavone Show. I am your host, Joe Pavone, and today I am joined by Ryan White. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Most definitely, dude. I found you actually through Instagram, and it's funny because you do a lot of branding. You brand yourself, your business, social media, and I look at you've used my story a lot, and I kept saying Ryan White, Ryan White, Ryan White. I'm like, you know what? Let me hit this dude up. So I hit you up. I wasn't expecting a response. That's so I do it. Everybody, I send DMs, send emails every single day, just trying to get people on, and I hit you up, and here we are. So again, thank you for coming on the show. But if you don't mind starting us off here, brother, just giving some insight on what you do for our listeners don't know who Ryan White is, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So I like to say I'm a jack of many trades, right? But my main venture obviously is my social media growth agency, which is called Social Revelation Marketing. And essentially what we do there is we help personal brands and businesses curate bigger audiences online, and we do that through social media. And then we help establish online credibility through things like digital PR, getting them placements on major business podcasts such as this one, and like some TV appearances, et cetera. So everything that goes into curating a bigger audience, right? And then if someone were to look you up online, really, really like establishing that leverage, that credibility, and that trustworthiness to get someone to move, from being on this side of the fence to a customer. So that in and of itself is kind of the main play of the agency. I'm involved in some other things as well. I have another business that we started. It's called Grow Your Brand. It's kind of secondary, obviously, to Social Revelation. So where Social Revelation is more of like we do a lot of the heavy lifting for our clients, right? So we, obviously, if you come to us, like we take care of, helping you curate that audience, et cetera. Whereas Grow Your Brand is more about teaching people how to fish. So it's giving you the knowledge and the tools, obviously, to go and do that. So it's an informational based product. The first product we're going to be releasing is actually called Zero to Hero, and it's teaching people basically how to go and build online brands and monetize them without wasting time and money. And so in essence, what it is it's me looking back on my journey, right, which started in 2016 as a baseball instructor, making 30 grand a year. Fast forward, 5 years into this, and now, we have an agency that does multiple 7 figures a year, kind of what that process looked like and how you can go and do it for yourself as well. So that's Grow Your Brand. And we're actually about to start recording the content. We've been through live beta and all that. We're really excited about it. The next 2 weeks, we're going to finalize that, and then we're going to go to market. So the third and the final business that I've curated is the NFT core. Obviously, the NFT space is absolutely booming. Yeah, right now. And so the purpose of that, we actually just went through a rebrand. So I had a luxury brand before, and my wife and I primarily use that brand to go and basically do a lot of promotions for resorts and things around the globe, and it kind of allowed us to go and travel for free. Now we've gotten to a point where our personal brands kind of take care of that. We don't really need that page to do that anymore. So we're actually rebranding that page, obviously, to the NFT core to go and help people obviously get more eyes on their projects.
Definite. So take us back to, you said you were a baseball instructor. Did you play ball?
I did, man. I did. I played college baseball.
Who's your team?
So my actual team, I mean, dude, I'm always going to be a UGA Bulldog fan. I didn't play at UGA. I actually played at Carson Newman University, which is a Division II school right outside of Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yep.
And so, yeah, man, I was there from 2008 to 2012. So I know that kind of gives away my age a little bit, but
so baseball was your passion, dude. So building teams is like your thing. That's
yeah, man, for sure. So a little context. My dad coached me from the time I could walk all the way through high school. So my dad, a little fun fact is he's like the 6th all-time winningest coach in the state of Georgia for high school baseball. Wow. So like my family basically was year-round when you have baseball. So it's probably why growing up as a coach's son, I kind of always had to push, right, because I could always be better. And I would 100% say that kind of translated over to the business world once my baseball career ended.
So now you said you started as an instructor, obviously instructing younger kids. How did you take something like that? And when did you realize, like, hey, this isn't for me anymore, making $30,000 a year. I want to transfer myself and whoever I have with me to the social media world. When did you realize that this shift was going to be good for you?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's going to sound cliche, but the reality is, man, I met a girl who's now my wife, right? So we're about to celebrate in March our wedding anniversary of 3 years. We've been together 6, and appreciate it, man. And again, when you find the one and you kind of have this idea, right, or this awareness, right, that you're about to step into being a provider, not only for yourself but for someone else, right, a future family. I think very quickly you immediately want to elevate, right? And you kind of process, okay, what is the next step? What does that look like? And I knew at the time, man, that, when I met my wife, I was 27 years old. I was throwing baseballs for a living. I was on the road a lot. And, when you get married, man, it's like the next step, obviously, to starting a family and things of that sort. And so you start to think of like, how can I be around more? I don't want to be on the road all the time. I don't want to trade my time for money. I want to be the father who's present. And so the reality, man, is like, I always knew early on that I most likely would be a business owner. I just had no idea what that would look like or what I would do. And so I tell you where it all started. I actually, in search of trying to find the business venture, right? Once I met my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, after my lessons, man, I would come home, and from like 9 o'clock at night to 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, I would basically research on how to go and build a bigger audience for myself on social media, because Instagram was a very up and coming thing. And the thought process there still wasn't, let me go create a social media company. But it was the idea that if I had a bigger audience, no matter what I chose to step into, it would get off the ground more easily, right? If I had an audience to push it to. And so through that process, right, of me doing the research and honestly just doing the trial and error, I got really, really good at growing audiences, man. I got to where, I was driving a lot of targeted baseball people back to my page. I got to where I was growing, my page, 10,000 followers per month, which naturally as a small town kid, right, in Southern Georgia, all my friends immediately was like, bro, how in the world do you have, 10, 20, 30, 40,000 Instagram followers? And so it raised a lot of awareness. People then started reaching out. And so the common question was, can you do the same for me? Right? Or will you help me? And so without even really knowing it, man, I started basically saying, yes, give me 20 bucks, 30 bucks, 40 bucks, 50 bucks here. And I was just kind of hustling. I was like, man, this is crazy. I'm going to get it while the getting's good. And what I realized after about 90 days was I had about 90 different people that I had worked with and served, that had come to me, and that I was serving at a high level. I was actually helping solve a problem for them. And it was kind of in that aha moment where I was like, man, I think there's value here. Maybe this is the business that kind of just fell into my lap. And so I always tell people, man, it's okay, to not have this perfect, like drawn out plan. Right. Really, really, man, the fruit of all of it is in the getting started, right? The action taking part of it, because everything else will kind of like get in line once you commit to like making something work. And you don't even have to know like, hey, I'm going to start a social media agency. It was just the idea of like, I know I want to start something, things have to change. I'm going to wake up every day and just control the things that I can control. And then boom, a business actually kind of like fell in my lap, and we moved from there.
It's crazy how shit snowballs. You start off, you don't know what you're doing. Like I started this podcast, so it'll be 2 years this summer, and I had zero idea what I was doing. No idea. I'm just like, I'm going to start a podcast. I want to meet some cool people. I want to talk to some cool people. It was honestly probably the beginning of COVID. And I was like, let me just reach out to some people I know. I reached out to a guy who became a buddy of mine, Tommy G. He's a YouTuber, and he was my very first episode. And now, we've become so close and we've grown this connection. And like, I had no idea what I was doing. And now, in the beginning of the show, for my OG listeners that know this, it was called Midnight Hash. And I don't smoke, dude. I had never smoked weed in my life. I don't drink. It's just not me. And I didn't know what hash meant. I thought a hash, like hashing out, having conversations. So a buddy of mine messaged me one day who happens to smoke, and he does his own thing. And he's like, dude, that's awesome. He's like, you taking up smoking? It's like, no. I was like, what do you mean? So he explained the name, and then I changed it to the Power Play, and then here we are, the Joe Pavone Show. So the name has changed 3 times, and I had no idea what I was doing, but now I got a ground basis, and I think that's with any business, with anything you start. You go in blindfolded, you don't know what's going on, whether you're opening up a standing up business or social media business. You just kind of take that jump and just do shit, and see where it ends up. And you had no idea you were going to be managing these social media accounts. It just happened. So
yeah, exactly. It's the famous phrase that you hear. Entrepreneurship is basically can be compared with jumping out of an airplane and building the parachute on the way down.
Yeah.
Right. And that's my story as well. And it's a story for a lot of the people that I know. The reality is, once you start moving, man, people will identify themselves, as mentors, leaders, people that you can basically call upon and figure things out with. And it happened to me very soon as well. I mean, right when I got involved, there were people that presented themselves, that I felt like would have been perfect to kind of link arms with, right? And it went from very quickly, it just being myself, to turning into almost a trio, right, of us partners that are going after this thing together. And Yeah, man, it's cool to see it how it all comes together when in the beginning it's so scary because you have no idea, obviously, what
Yeah.
direction to kind of walk
Yeah.
in. Um,
It is most definitely. Now, how did you go about networking with these kind of people? Because I mean, when you started working with, people, you said people handing you 20, 30, $50. I mean, I'm assuming you work now with bigger brands, correct?
yeah,
So
100%.
how did you go from, I mean, you're basically a social media whiz. You built yourself up from 100 followers to however many you have now. I think it's like a million. I think you have a mil. I'm not
We're
quite sure.
right at 2.5. Yeah,
Two and
two
a
and a
half.
half mil.
So yeah, it's like, how did you take from something so small and so subtle to growing it so big?
Yeah, man. I mean, the biggest thing when it comes to, if we're talking about just the social media side of things, it's no different than what you're doing here, right? It all comes back to process, right? Everybody wants to see the big event of like, oh, he's got 2.5 million followers, lucky him. But what people fail to realize is the daily processes that led up to that, right? It's the small daily tasks that become a lifestyle that eventually lead to the big event. It's no different than you're doing this podcast, you're meeting people every single day, you're interviewing some of the top people in the world. And like naturally, when you do that and you compound those efforts, right, AKA the process over time, you're going to find connections and people that want to go and serve you, help you, right, and help you level up. And even the wisdom and the value and the insight that you're getting when you're doing these calls with other people, is priceless. You can't put a number on that. And so it's really cool to see what you're doing. But in terms of like obviously the money game, there's basic frameworks, right? If you're trying to go scale any business, there's three basic components. And the very first component of that, dude, is scaling the entrepreneur. And if you're a first time entrepreneur, man, like myself, who, both parents were in education, I didn't have anybody showing me, the ropes of entrepreneurship or how to run a business. It was like, so the whole scaling of the entrepreneur, dude, that it's still taking place today, but like I've grown so much in the last 5 years just from being involved and being the hands and feet of the business. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so in saying that, it's like, your belief system will naturally elevate. Like in the beginning, man, why was I saying yes to 20, 30, 40, $50? Because as an entrepreneur, dude, my belief system was, I'm worth 20, 30, 40, $50. You know what I'm saying? Whereas now my belief system, man, like I have clients that cut me 6-figure per month checks. So I started the business ultimately to go create a 6-figure income for myself. Now there's been days, man, I've made over 6 figures, I made over 6 figures in 24 hours. And so that doesn't happen overnight, but it's a belief pattern. It's a belief system that elevates as you continue to do the work. And as you do the work and you surround yourself with good people, you start to realize, wow, man, if these people are winning, I can win. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? Like why do I have to be the one that can't go, make 6 figures per month, per day, whatever? When you're in real time, that's why I believe your environment is so important, right? And you're the average of the five. But most importantly, I think your environment is crucial because you're tapping into not only the habits of those around you, but you're tapping into the mindset. And that is continuing to basically build your own belief system so that you can elevate. And I remember the first time I made the switch, I had a conversation with a buddy of mine on my social media services. And he said, man, he said, why in the world are you charging, $100 per month for what you do? He goes, dude, immediately tomorrow, you need to go like change all your rates to a minimum of 500 and above. And in my mind at the time, I was like, dude, who's going to pay me $500 a
Right.
month?
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny looking back, but again, it goes back to the belief system, and that's why I say step one of the three steps to scale a business. It starts with scaling the entrepreneur, because the moment I made that transition and I realized that I'm worth far more, and that $500 a month, hell, even $3K a month, man, is a steal for what I can go and do for a business. It really kind of just puts you in a league of your own. And really at that point, man, sky really is the limit, because, now, I mean, I'm trying to transition and go, how can I go and hit the next step on the ladder, and how can I get to $1 million a month? Because that's like the next goal for me, is like, how do I go from where I'm at to $1 million a month? And I know, and it's already done, man. It's already done.
Right.
Like I know that I will get to $1 million a month because the belief system's already there.
Yeah. You got to know it. You got to know what you're offering is solid. You got to have a good product. Like, I mean, it's not even a cocky thing, dude. It's just like, I know who I am. I know what I have to offer. I'm going to attract the right people.
For sure. 100%.
And like, there's this, everyone's, oh, we're all equal and this and that. And I truly don't believe that. I believe, yes, life will put people on these pedestals just by what you believe, but are we really equal? Because everybody's got different goals. everybody's got different dreams, and I don't know. I think there's the entrepreneur mindset, dude. It's a tricky thing, but it's very, very rewarding if you have it, And I'm not saying you're born an entrepreneur.
100%.
You're not. You're built. You have to want it. Like you said, dude. You were offering $100 for this and this, and your buddy's like, "Yo, raise the prices." And he saw something. And you're like, "You got to believe. You have to believe in what you're doing." And the
Yeah.
next question I got to ask you, man, is when is the satisfaction ever end? Because for me, I know I have an entrepreneur mindset. It's just how I am. My parents are entrepreneurs. We own a gym and we own a pizzeria. It's just how I was brought up, how I was raised. I'm constantly around it every day. But for you, for anybody listening, I mean, even myself, because like I achieve a goal and I'm not like, I'm satisfied for the time being. I'm like, all right, next, when does that satisfaction ever end?
For sure, man. I think the answer for me, and when you get your first taste of a little bit of money, especially when you're young, it's tough, right? Because it's more, 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 more. I think what I found, now that I've been in the game for 6 years, been married, et cetera, getting ready for a family and things. I think it's important for people to sit down and number one, you have to set a target, right? Because if there's no target, then you're just constantly reaching, right? You're chasing the wind. And so what I mean by setting a target is outlining, sitting down and taking the time to outline what your dream life would look like. And that's going to be different for different people, but if you sit down and you say, hey, I want to, my dream house is $3 million, right? Well, write down, go sit down and write down 3 million and figure out what that would cost you. And I mean, literally per month, right? And then if you want to drive a Lamborghini, go write the Lamborghini down. This is going to cost you this per month, and it's going to cost you that insurance. And go identify if you want to take 6 vacations a year to exotic destinations, go set aside a budget to go and do that. And my point is just map out what your dream life would look like, okay, and add all of that up and get an actual concrete number on what it takes per month, right? Because I think it's important not to just look at a huge number, but we need to reverse engineer all the way back down to what it costs per month, even per week, and then per day, because now we have set targets, right? There's a famous saying that says, you can't hit a target that's not there, right? Or you're just shooting an arrow everywhere, right? Everywhere you look, you're shooting an arrow. And so I just had this conversation with my wife literally last month. We were sitting down and we were writing out, like, truly, what is our dream life? What would that look like? And how much, more importantly, how much would that cost us? Because here's the thing, man, for you to live your dream life, it actually costs less than most people realize, right? We think that in our brains, we got to go make, $100 million for us to truly be happy and have our dream life. When in reality, if you go do the math, it's far less. There was a study that was actually done. I have a background in accounting, and the reality, even in economics, says that the marginal utility where it maxes out when it comes to annual income is around about $200,000 a year. Now that's a little bit low, for myself, but what that basically means is, like, for most people in America, when they look at it, it's like, if I was to eat, if I'm craving cookies, right, and I eat the first cookie, I get a high marginal utility. For those who don't know what marginal utility is, it's just the satisfaction that you get. And so when I eat the second cookie, right, I may get a little bit higher satisfaction, but by the time you eat the third, fourth, and fifth cookie, there's a point where it tops, right, and then your satisfaction starts to go down to the point where you're like, I don't even want another cookie. So the point is, with income, they say it's around about $200,000 to $250,000 a year. So my point is if you were to write out and you were to come up with your dream lifestyle and see that it cost you $500,000 a year to go and do that, why would we be chasing going to make $20 million a year? You know what I mean? Because I heard it this way too from a very successful person. So I spoke with several multi-million-dollar earner. He's the epitome, if you were on the outside looking in, to have the perfect life, right? He's got the perfect marriage. His wife loves him. His kids love him. He's a multi-millionaire. He's got several businesses. He's also, like, he donates heavily to the church, and he sits as the chairman of a lot of nonprofits that go and they serve a good cause in the world. And so I was asking him, and I said, hey man, how do you do all of this? And the piece of advice that he gave me was, what it means to sacrifice is basic, or to prioritize rather. What it means to prioritize is to sacrifice in some other area. So he's like, the reason that I have a good relationship with my wife and kids is he said, I left millions, tens of millions of other dollars on the table that I could have went and made because I prioritized them. He said, and the reason I have such a good relationship, obviously in my faith, is he said there was obviously a lot of social events and gatherings that obviously I sacrificed in order to have that. And it kind of just struck me and it penetrated me when he said that, because I'm like, interesting. So it kind of ties back in with what I say about, going and identifying what your dream life looks like and what it would cost you. Because at the end of the day, what he's saying is, hey man, listen, if I know what it takes for me to be happy and I'm living my dream life, and if that's $10 million a year, I have no reason to go chase $100 million a year and be miserable, because at what cost?
Yeah, most definitely. What is, I mean, money's money. We need money to survive. You need money every day. I mean, when people talk about money, especially when it comes to people who are very successful, and I don't want to say the average person, when they look at guys like you, when they look at guys like Gary Vee, when they look at guys like David Meltzer, whoever is a higher up, public figure, and they have all this going for them, they see what's on social media and they talk negative about, like, oh, the money made him this and that. And how do you separate yourself from that, such as, like, yes, like I said, we need money to survive, you need money to eat everything. What gets you up in the morning? Because I mean, yes, money is a driving force for a lot of people, but it's so much more than that. What wakes you up in the morning and says, all right, let's do this shit, it's a new day, I want to keep moving forward, I want to keep hitting my goals?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, man, we're all after the same thing, and money is a tool and a resource to get that one thing. We're all after freedom. We're after the freedom to choose. You can go back to why does anyone do anything, and it all comes back to this choice of freedom. And I get up every day because I understand that, and it's like, if you have a bad relationship with money, you're going to repel it away. So the first thing you have to do is you got to change your relationship with it, and you got to understand, you got to see it for what it is. Money's not evil, right? It just intensifies what's already there.
Yep.
But more importantly, money is a tool and a resource to go, and the way that I see it is, it's little freedom fighters fighting for my freedom every day. So the more of those freedom fighters I can go collect and put to work for me, right, invest away, they're fighting for me to have the ability to wake up, without an alarm clock, right? To have the ability to be able to take the vacation, right? If I want to go take a 6-month sabbatical and travel the world, it gives me the ability to go and do that. And so that's kind of the grind for me, is because I do have a set number, right? And like, I'm actually looking, if things go well and we do what we're supposed to do, I'm looking to exit my agency, actually sell my agency in 12 months. And obviously I wouldn't sell it. I have a number in mind of, like, and to me, it's my escape number. It's my freedom number.
Right.
And so if I'm offered that, so I've been doing the process, right, for 5 years. I've been scaling this thing. And if all goes well, if I were to sell this, I'm going to hit that. I'm going to be offered, right, in an acquisition, a liquidation event, that dream number, which is going to be the golden ticket, right, to my wife and I basically sacrificing heavily, right, the last 5 years, to now we're in a position that when we start a family, right, I'm 31 years old. So, my wife, she's about to be 30 next month. And so we're in our early 30s, and we're going to be put in a position to where we have the ability to be very present with our kids, right? And we're not having to go slave for someone else 8 hours a day. So I always like to look at opportunities where I can invest my time for a more desirable outcome. So like right now, right, if you're working for someone else, I mean, you're in people call it the quote unquote rat race. And basically how I see that is, you're right now, you are committed to putting your time and energy into a math equation that you're trading 5 for 2, right? You're working
Almost
Monday through Friday in order to live for Saturday and Sunday, right? And it's interesting because society and everything that's thrown at us via the media, right, and government and education, it all trains us, right, even when we're 4 years old, man, and we start to go to school. Schooling already starts training us to literally start trading 5 for 2, right, because we go to school Monday through Friday, and we get Saturday, Sunday off. And so I just think it's very interesting, because if we don't have the capacity to recognize that and do something about it and get ourselves in a more desirable outcome, right? So I've grinded and I've traded, honestly, for the last 5 years, I've been trading a 6 for 1. But the reason I was doing that was because I understood that for a very short period of time, I was investing a 6 to 1, because eventually I knew it would pay me out, maybe a 1 to 6.
Right.
Yeah, a 1 to 6. So maybe I only work 1 day a week after this buyout. You know what I mean? And I'm able to have, take the next 6 days and do whatever the heck I want. So that's the point, is like, just make sure that where you're spending your time, energy, and your resources is going into a more desirable outcome that benefits you and your future family.
Yeah, most definitely. How do you feel about the school system, the system in general?
I think the educational system, I mean, I have a degree that I'll say it this way. I have a 4-year degree that I'm still making monthly student payments on, and I graduated in 2012, because It just pains me. It pains me, right, And I pay it on time. You know, it's not, I mean, I could go write a check tomorrow, right, and pay it all off if I wanted to. It's just, there's better ways for me to go invest my money that's going to produce a bigger return, you know, when I have no issue making that payment. So, you know, I look at obviously the interest rate on what the APR is, and I know if I go invest that money, I'm going to make more than what that interest rate is. So it makes more sense for me just to pay the monthly payment and take the money and do other things with it. So, but to answer your question, if you are going to, you know, want to be a lawyer or a doctor, right, or there's some
Gotta
trade
go.
or profession, yeah, that requires you to go, then go. But if you're just going, right, like in my case, I kind of got hit with well, I'm an athlete, so I got to go, right, to extend my
Right.
career. And because I was so focused on being an athlete and I was good in mathematics, my advisors kind of pushed me into getting an accounting degree. And after my career ended, man, and I got into accounting and did 2 tax seasons, I was like, what have I just done? Because I realized that, oh my goodness, like I have a degree, I spent all this money in something that I absolutely can't stand. And there's no way I can do this for the next 50 years. So it's very tough. I mean, you don't want to be a young, you know, in your 20s, mid 20s, someone coming out, right, and you know, the average student loan debt, dude, is over 6 figures, and you don't want to be starting your lifestyle, right, with a 6 figure
Yeah.
liability over your head. So I would just say, man, especially in 2022 with the Gen Z and the Gen Y generation, there's so many opportunities to make money now.
So many.
You know what I mean? That I don't feel like the world's changing, right? Because degrees are becoming something of the past, because, you know, we live in a world now where it really means nothing. Like you having a 4-year degree or not having a 4-year degree honestly entitles you to no more amount of money than your neighbor, right? Because you know, it's everyone's going to high school and to college and everyone's getting them, right? And the issue with it is I don't really care about what you learned in school. I care more about the practicality of your experiences on how you can help me increase my bottom lines in my company. So as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, you know, just because you have a 4-year degree doesn't necessarily tell me how you're going to go help me make more money, right? All you have is some useless knowledge, right? That may not translate. It may or may not translate.
Right.
So what I would be more inclined is to hire someone who tells me, hey man, I didn't go to college, but when I graduated at 18, I've been getting job experience, right? Selling products or whatever for the last 10 years. And that's why I feel like I'm qualified for this. And I go, okay, well, you've been in sales for the last 10 years. You possess the skill set that I need. I'm going to see more value in that than someone that's fresh out with a 4-year degree. And that's just the reality. And I think it's important for students coming out and trying to decide if they want to go or not. They need to look through the lens of like a potential employer, right? And that's you and I as a CEO.
Right.
You know, so we should go to CEOs and we should be asking the question like, hey, you know, what are you looking for when you're making your hires? You know, is it really going to make that difference, make or break me if I have a 4-year degree or I don't? And I think what you're going to find is the answer to that question is no. As long as you possess a skill set that I need and I'm after, right?
Right.
And there's a high chance that I'm going to bring you on the team.
You know, when you mentioned, you know, Gen Z and Gen Y, there is a lot of chances to make money. A lot. You know, you can make money off Instagram. You know, you just gotta grind for it. And you know what I really think it's about? Networking. It's huge. It's huge. Why do you think I'm doing this podcast? Yeah, I love having conversations with, you know, guys such as, you know, who have a similar mindset as me, such as you. I had Vic Blends on about a year ago, you know, David Meltzer, whoever I've had on the show. But like, dude, it's about networking. That's why I'm doing this shit. Like, I didn't go to college. I wasn't someone who went to college. I wasn't going to be $100,000 in debt. It just wasn't happening. You know, I was going to go for business. I would have went 4 years. I would have went 2 to community and then, you know, transferred, I don't know, wherever. But like, I just saw it as like, no, why? You know, when I have this skill to network because of what I surround myself with, such as my parents who are entrepreneurs, I have this, you know, I have a head on my shoulders and I'm like, why am I going to waste 4 years of my time when I could start at the time I was 19 or no, 18 turning 19. I was like, I could start with this. I could reach out to X, Y, and Z, build this. And hey, maybe this takes me somewhere, you know, like you said, you started Social Revelation, you started it, you networked, you know, you didn't go out there and you weren't like, hey, I'm charging $500 to do this, this, and this. No, you started small. You know, it's about starting small and building those connections. But I want to turn the page real quick, dude. I want to talk about the NFT core. NFTs are huge. And honestly, I talk about it in almost every single podcast episode that I have, just because they're big and they're hot right now. What is the NFT core and how did you get that started?
Yeah, so the NFT core is primarily, a page that educates, number one, because there's so much misinformation out there. A lot of people, they're hearing about NFTs, they're hearing about this space, but it goes over a lot of people's heads. So, at its simplest form, we're here to kind of educate and help people understand what NFTs are, how they are going to potentially be used in the future, and then how people can take advantage of them, obviously, in the present, right, to create value in their lives. So that's what we do. And now, obviously, secondary to that, because we are an NFT specific page, obviously we have pages that reach out to us every day wanting us to promote their projects. And so, kind of our goal there is to vet certain projects that we feel obviously are going to serve some purpose, obviously, in the future and has great utility. And that will be, obviously not a rug pull. We're not after those, right?
Right.
But we want projects that have long-term vision, that are going to be around, in the next 3, 4, 5 years, right? Because again, you just had Facebook, right? They just did a whole rebrand, right? They literally changed their name to Meta.
Meta, yeah.
And Meta, right? So, and NFTs are going to 100% be integrated into the metaverse. And so there's just so much opportunity there. And so we want to basically partner with those projects that have massive utility, that want to be around for the long term, and basically just bring those to light, right, to our audience. And so in and of itself, that's kind of what it is. Obviously, the space is changing so fast, it's lightning speed. And so that could change, but the primary goal right now is to educate, inform, and then to help projects that are up and coming that we feel will serve our community.
Most definitely, dude. I got one more question before we go here today. What advice could you give to someone out there, an entrepreneur, or someone trying to grow their, social media brand, and they're starting at 100 followers and they want to grow? What advice could you give to them?
Again, I would say, don't focus on the event. That's the biggest thing. Commit to the process. It's not going to be easy, but anything worth having is not going to be easy. And the trophy is always on top of the mountain, right? And there's always a climb, right, to get there. And there's energy, effort, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get there. But when you get there and you hold the trophy and you're standing on top of the mountain, it's going to be way more worth it the more suffering you endure. And I don't want to say suffering is like it's all bad, because there's a lot of good there, right? The growth that happens on that journey, right, I think is the greatest blessing of anything. And but be consistent. The biggest thing, man, when it comes to social media is identifying who you are and what message you want to go and push out, right? So many people have no clear identity of what they're even trying to do, or the messaging, right? And so they're posting about fitness, and then they're posting about cars and their vacations and all this stuff, but there's no consistency, because everything's all over the map. And so I would say, do a little bit of research and figure out, how do I want to be perceived? Because at the end of the day, man, social media and digital PR and all the things we do online is about creating that digital brand, that digital perception. Yep. Right? It's the first impression a lot of time, right? When you came to my Instagram, that was the first impression that you got from my profile before we ever even met. And that's super important. And we have a responsibility to protect that image, right? Because your reputation is everything. And so with that, I would say, do a little bit of research before you just start posting, and figure out, who am I? How do I want to be perceived by other people? And then more importantly, what message do I want to deliver to those people? And then align your content around what the conclusion that you come to there. And I think when you do that, and you get hyper specific as well, try to go as deep as you can. Nobody wants to stay in the shallow end of the pool with you. Yeah. Right. It's okay to be vulnerable, be raw. We live in a world, especially on Instagram, where everything is about the highs. Nobody wants to talk about the lows. Right. It's like a highlight reel. And what I would say, that people that's standing out right now in 2022 on Instagram and social media are those who are willing to pull back that curtain, be vulnerable, and actually, talk about the challenging times, and understand that your pain is your platform, right? And your suffering is your story. So start there, right? And then get confident in that, and be consistent, commit to the process. And by consistent, try to post once a day. Do something that makes you uncomfortable, right? Because usually it's on the other side of that uncomfortability is where you're going to find success. And yeah, man, just commit to the journey, and you're well on your way.
Ryan, you're the man, dude. I appreciate you coming on the show today, dude. It was an honor chatting with you.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate you having me, man.
Definitely, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yes, sir.